Right. Just rubbing your hands together. And tapping over your face. Over your head and neck. Down to one shoulder. Arm. Side. Upper part of the chest. Belly. And your legs. Weight a little bit forward so you can feel some of your weight in your feet. Just be careful of your back as always. A couple of slow, gentle breaths. Starting to just pay attention to what's happening in your body and try and keep that focus as we go into the initial exercises. Although we call them a kind of warm-up and a preparation, actually they contain within them things that we want to try and bring into other movements. And whilst it's quite difficult to focus just on, say, turning your head, it's easier to feel, say, the connections in the body, how it works down into your back and your chest and so on and so forth, just one simple movement. Than it is to try and take that on board when you're doing, I don't know, some like part in the wild horse's mane or something. But building up that awareness means that it will spill over into the other movements. So just turning your head. Another important principle that we apply across the board is that we're going to move within the space that's available to us. So just recognizing that point where you're getting close to a kind of gripping, tightening feeling within the body, rather than just a sense that certain parts of the body are working, and they may be working a bit hard, but that's not quite the same thing. So retaining the spacious quality within your body. And that space is bordered, defined by a sense of elasticity in the soft tissue and the fluidity of your body. Hands in front of your shoulders. Going forwards. Hands down to your sides. Rotating from your shoulders. So once we've learned a particular exercise, we actually start to learn from that exercise, because they will always illustrate certain ways of moving, certain connections, certain aspects of the art that then we may find are reflected in other movements that we do, other exercises, and then winding around. So as well as being all of them interesting in their own right with their own unique patterns and so on and so forth, they also tend to illuminate each other. And then back the other way. Rest your hands, easing forwards and pushing back. And then turning a little and then in the other direction. And around. And back the other way. Come back to the center. And then second forwards. And back. Okay. On the other side. So now we start to put all these things together, or rather we allow all these things to come together. If you start thinking, oh, right, I've got to do this with my shoulder or something like that, it's never going to work. It will be too frantic. Focus on the actual exercise and just observe how these different elements arise. The bird folds its wings. Combination of the transfer of your weight, opening and closing in your chest and your upper back. And then fisherman cast the net. and rolling the ball. And then pigeon spreads its wings. Sitting back, feeling your chest open. And if it suits you, then you could try this with your breathing. You sit back to see how it feels to take a breath in with that increased space all the way down into your belly. And then pushing away. Try and use this image of moving into water, moving like water, and see if that brings about any kind of qualitative change in the movement that you're feeling. One more time. Hands fisted. One more time going forwards. Come back into pigeon spreads its wings. Just a little sequence of 3. Pigeon spreads its wings. Pushing away. And punch with both fists. And just notice what's required, what your body does to move from one exercise to another. It's often not as much effort required in that as you might think. It can be just one little change sometimes, or one or two, those subtle changes. One more round. So this time, when you're forwards, just open your fingers. Just keep your arms rotating until the palms are as close as possible to facing outwards. That might be a bit of a strain, but see if you can do that. Just rotate all the way through your arm and then let your hand drop down as it winds back. One more time. And then polishing the table, your hands palm down, turning, feeling your lower back, turning in the opposite direction and then swinging around. So imagine, if you can, somebody just taking hold of the top of your belt and they're pulling you towards the right and then backwards and then around and back up, so that in a way the movement is generated from that point where your lower back meets your pelvis, rather than generated by straining in your back or your shoulders or your arms. And as you do that, then there's a feeling of lengthening, of extension out of your spine. Your spine stays back in the chair. But there's this, like a cat when it's trying to squeeze through somewhere, it will somehow get thinner and longer, but that kind of quality about it. Once again, allowing this to ease out, ease into the space. One more in its direction. Good. Now, turn your hands palm up, pushing up and pressing down. Feeling that little press down through your hips and your feet just before you feel the movement coming up underneath your arms, expanding up through your back. Nice, soft, smooth quality of movement in your shoulders. And then the wild goose. and parting the clouds. So let your hands drop down, and then dragon plucks the stars from the sky. Take your time. Remember, when your hands dropped all the way down, you then just let your attention pan across to the other side of your body. So it's not an immediate thing. There's a little bit of space between each visible movement. You can still feel movement in your body. Your mind is still very active. Once again, just remind yourself, moving through water, or here plucking an apple off a tree requires a little bit of particular effort, and pushing up is like, imagine you're sitting on an elastic band or one underneath your foot, and you're just pulling it up and then letting it contract. One more on each side. And both hands pushing in two directions. The two directions being up and then sideways. Next time, just same thing, but adding two more sections by turning in your hips and your waist. So when you push out sideways, do the same thing with your arms and your hands, but turn the whole of your upper body just a little, and then back. One direction, and the second, same thing in the other way. And start all over again. One last time. Now scooping the sea, looking at the sky. And then in the other direction, we go into grasping the tiger's ears. Don't strain to draw your arms over. If it's for some reason it's a struggle to get your hands to the required height, do it lower or do it with a single arm and swap over every now and then. Until you've found the sort of method of doing it, then you'll find that you will get quite a lot of that movement back. Good, and then change over. And then you're going to change again to grasping the tiger's ears. Notice your hands are palm forwards here. Fist them, go forwards. And then that same closing of the chest that we get in Bird Folds Its Wings and related exercises actually helps you draw your arms around. And the lengthening through your back helps to draw them up. These are all things that, again, we find in those early exercises. And so long as we aim to do an exercise like this without straining, then you'll find that those, if your instruction to your body is don't stiffen up the shoulders, and you keep repeating that, then eventually it will have to find other ways of moving. One more time. So, parting the wild horse's mane. Just briefly go over the weight change. Start with your weight back in your right hip. Go diagonally forwards to your left foot, and then back to your right hip, and then straight across to your left hip with a little bit of a turn, and diagonally towards your right foot, back to your left hip, and then across. A combination of your weight moving a little, the center turning. So from here, we're going to go into parting the wild horse's mane, hands in front of you. And then as you go into your left leg, swinging your left arm out, coming back, hold the ball and move across. Feeling your chest open. Hands sweeping through, just noticing a very common urge to embellish the movement with extra rotation of your arm or movement of the hands. look for that simple line through your body, the movement through your body. And then just observe how your body is making that movement. Do one more. Now this time we're going to start the same way, but we're going to add a couple of movements to this. So go forward with your right hand, go into your right leg. Now just bring your left hand around, palm facing back, as though you're going to try and touch your elbow. The fingers pointing down. Then imagine your fingers stuck in mud, and what you're going to do is you're going to pull the fingers out of the mud, sit back into your left hip, and let your hand come down. Turn both hands palm in, and it's like you're holding a small ball, and you move forwards. Then we change the other side. So you come back, you bring both hands across, drop your left hand down, come back into your right hip. And then it's parting the wild horse's mane. Feel how that openness really has that elastic quality, which now contracts to bring your hands through. Imagine being stuck in mud. You have to pull quite hard. Your hand comes out. You hold the small ball between the palms of your hands and go forwards. And then to make the change, both hands come over the top. Leading hand drops down. And you're holding the ball, and you come back into the opposite hip, and you start all over again. This is a sequence of movements called the white ape offers fruit. Let's do one more round. And then rest. So white ape offers fruit is a little bit more complex than most of the exercises that we do, but not as complex as a Tai Chi form. So we get a little bit of variety, and we can reflect on how that variety is produced. But because it repeats over and over again, if we do make a mistake, it's simple enough to bring about a correction. And the repetition really deepens our awareness of quite small movements. I notice, for instance, that when I do this, particularly when I'm standing, but the hip on this side is kind of folded inwards, on this side has opened out. But then that changes to bring this hand to there. And I haven't tried to sort of think, right, I'm going to close that hip or whatever. I do the movement, and I notice how my body's doing the movement. And then next time I've maybe got an awareness of that I actually start to bring into the movement. Before we stand, let's just do one more exercise. Let's do bear play. So just start off with this rolling movement in your shoulders. The weight moving into your right leg and back, into your left leg and back. And you can start off with quite small movements. I don't know if you've ever, I'm sure you have, quite a common one, but they call them pedalos, these little boats that you get on ornamental lakes by the seaside, and you pedal them along. And it's a bit like you're using one of those, except you're doing it with your hands. But then just gradually letting your hands move out further without straining your back or your shoulder. One more time. And let your hands rest. Rubbing your hands together. Tapping over your face. Over your head and neck. And then down to one shoulder. And your arm. The other side. Part of the chest. The belly. And push one knee up and down. So just push through the ball of your foot, working with the big muscles of your leg. And then turn it into a circular movement. See if you can feel that movement right deep into your hip joint. Not dissimilar to when we do this movement with shoulders. Of course, hip and knee, both very similar in structure. And on the other side. Okay, and then stand in if you want to. Feet hip width apart, and the feeling that is similar to the feeling we get when we sit into a chair. When we sit into a chair, particularly one of these sort of big old armchairs or something like that, we often find ourselves kind of slipping down the middle. And it's like the cushion kind of rises either side of us. And in the same way, we want our torso to have the feeling of sliding down between our legs and our hips coming higher up the body. And we'll do a sequence of rooting down, wild goose, and parting the cloud. So coming down and pushing up. So rooting down. And then the wild goose. And parting the clouds. back to rooting down. Just again, feeling the transition from one movement to another, what the effects are within your body. So you're moving through water, as though you're moving like water, finding the path of least resistance, not creating tightness and stiffness within your body. One more round. Give your legs a shake. Slightly wider stance, and we'll just do a few rounds of the part of the wild horse's main standing. So when we're in this wider stance, be careful. You don't want to sort of strain your knees. It encourages a dropping down, but it also facilitates the sense of your torso slipping down between your hips. So you move your weight from one leg to another, and your body turns just a little bit. The reason for having the wider stance, part of that is it will be stronger in your legs. So be careful, but don't be surprised if your legs ache a bit. They'll be getting a bit stronger. But because we're only moving the weight a little bit across, with the wider stance, it's easier to pick up that transfer of your weight. Come into your right side, hold a ball with your right hand on top and your left hand underneath. Move across into your left, turn, and let the left hand swing up and down. And then back, turning slightly over your right leg. Turn your hands in to hold the ball. Move across into your left. And then the same thing on the other side. Don't overextend your arm. Feel as though the expansion in your body. So here from your right foot into the left side of your chest, pushing your hand and arm out. Good, and then shake out. Okay, 1 foot forwards. Transferring your weight and use that heightened awareness of detail and change within your body, how your body responds to a simple movement like the transfer of your weight to really help you develop this movement. You want in the end to feel that you're moving to a particular point in the foot. That's usually that point just behind the ball of each foot. but we didn't do it today, but sometimes we do that little exercise, rocking forwards and backwards. That will give you an idea of where that point of equilibrium is. And you want to be aware of the line, the narrow pathway between those 2 points. So what you don't want to do is go halfway along that line and then just kind of veer off it or something like that, which is very easy to do. So in fact, you probably will do it, but you learn to make the correction. So just to illustrate that a little, carry on. So if as I stand here, this is the square, then actually what I'm doing is moving along that line. Actually, not even that, but it's almost along that line. In fact, it's a little bit too long, so it should be going towards the ball of my foot. That's probably more like it. That's a little bit more. It's not entirely accurate, but you get the idea. But there's that diagonal line there. Let's get rid of that. Then raising your toes and your heel. Stepping in. And on the other side. And then raising your toes and your heel. And then stepping in. And step through. And in the other direction. Now left foot forwards. Fisherman castanet. Now sink back, and with just a little turn in the center of your body, we make the transition to Wind Blows the Willows. Good, and shake out. And then on the other side, so fisherman cast the net. And then Wind Blows the Willows. Shake out. Okay, come back to your chair. Once again, just sitting comfortably. Feel the weight of your arms hanging from your shoulders. And again, that feeling of sinking into the chair, softening in the hips and lower back. Pushing your arms out. And then around as though you're holding the ball against your chest. Feeling the hips sinking down, drawing your hands back in and down so that everything settles once again. Embrace tiger, return to the mountain. One more round. And rest. Lovely. Just open your eyes. Thank you very much, everybody. So, hope that was useful to you.
Yes, thank you very much.